Perfect. No, thanks, Mike. That's a very important question. You're right. Evidence shows that we have in African cities about half of the population living in informal settlements already. And the projections shows that we're going to have hundreds of millions of people coming to cities, from 600 million to 900 million in the next couple of decades. So we are talking about cities that are already suffering from major infrastructure gaps and that are still not ready to receive this population. Of course, when they come into cities, the first thing is to have a roof over their heads and water, right? We cannot live without water. So it's very important that we plan for this growth. I think this is the urgent priority, but we cannot oversee the population who is already living in informal settlements. So having strategies to upgrade, to improve these informal settlements is very, very critical. And in that, the connection to water, I would say it's an emergency. Yeah, I think there are two levels of planning. One is really at the local level, right? Local authorities, mayors, governors, local leaders planning how cities are going to grow. Planning how cities are going to grow in the next decades. You have, for example, to think where people are going to be housed, how land is going to be used, right? And we also have to take into account that cities cannot just sprawl because this is oppressive for the natural surroundings. Water is one factor. If cities just grow, then the water sources will be affected, and we have many metropolitan areas today all over the globe that are suffering from droughts, for example. So we have to see how land is going to be allocated, respect that land has a social and ecological function, looking at densification, for example, right? This is one solution to maximize the use of land. Have cities that are more compact. This is on the new urban agenda. This is recognized on the new urban agenda. But this needs to be endorsed by the society. So participatory governance is a key aspect of this process. A dialogue between leaders and the society needs to take place. The second level is at the national level, because we need investments to be there, we need regulations to be there to address the issue of informal settlements. For example, we need laws that would recognize that informal settlements are there and people living there have the right to access the services and adequate housing, right? But also all the regulations related to the urban environment, the national urban policy, a housing strategy, right? So basically we need at the national level to have the money allocated to cities. We need to have the laws that will support, bold action vis-a-vis urbanization. And we need to have the right policies in place. Of course, you need to have, the whole of the society supporting this process, as I said. The residents in the city, the private sector. The needs are massive in terms of infrastructure, access to water, housing. We need to have the private sector on board. We need to have the communities on board. There are so many community-led examples in Africa that could be, that could inspire actually processes of achieving adequate housing in many other countries. And the water utilities, right? They need to be ready to go. They need to have the authorization to go to the informal settlements, and they need to have also their plans, their expansion plans based on the estimates of related to the demographic influx. So it's difficult for them to act alone, to just make the connections, because, as I said before, in many places, the laws and regulations, they just don't allow them to do that, right? Informal settlements are not formally recognized, legally recognized. So perhaps they should have also a role that goes beyond the technical mandates of engineers, water experts, and so on, and really be one of the stakeholders that, play a role into the major enabling environment. I'm talking about here zoning, regulations at the city level, but also promote at the national level the investments that are needed. So I would say, of course, they have a pragmatic role to connect the pipes, make sure the water is there, but as the conditions in many places don't allow them to do that, they need to be part of the change makers, making process, of the transformation process. And they need to work with local governments to identify what are the rules, what are the regulations that can be changed to enable them to expand their business, to expand their infrastructure, but also with national governments to see if the investment policies are aligned with their mandates and their needs. Well, first of all, urban planning, right? So, and urban planning that speaks to the principles of the New Urban Agenda, urban planning that recognizes that there are limitations to the use of land. As I mentioned before, that land has a social and an ecological function. Also urban planning that speaks to the needs of the population, those residents of informal settlements, and of course the business communities, all stakeholders. So participatory urban planning is critical, following principles of transparency, urban plans that are comprehensive, that are integrated, that are sensitive to themes such as climate change, or that understand the importance of the needs or the aspirations of young population or women and girls, right? So basically urban plans that are designed in a way that everybody understands and that work for the people and for the nature, right? And this is an important aspect that needs to be addressed here in Africa. To give concrete examples, I like the example of Kenya, of the special planning areas that have been applied to some settlements here. And it's a zoning mechanism that actually allows the services to be connected to the informal settlements, even if the property ownership is not clear, right? So it has been very useful during COVID. It enabled access to water to some communities. Mukuru is one example here in Kenya. And I think advocating and including, embedding informal settlements and this type of zoning that really allows the integration of informal settlements in the city fabric, into the infrastructure. These are, critical solutions, critical pathways for combining the work that utilities do. I mean, their business plans, how they will expand in the future, and how cities are growing and expanding in the future. So basically, you have to combine a process that is a whole of the society approach, right, and a process that needs to be also kind of more business-oriented, but also recognizing that the work that water utilities do is a public good, right? So these are challenges to combine all that, But I think it's possible. And as I mentioned, this very simple example, it has been possible in many places. Yeah, to address with all the urban challenges that we spoke about, right? The needs of people already living in cities and are not connected to water, people coming to cities and need to be connected. The role of these utilities as organization needs to be strengthened. I mean, they need to be well governed, well managed. They have to be efficient. We have a lot of water losses happening, for example. We have to look at the revenues. I was talking about their business expansion before. So this needs to be lined up with the prospects of growth, right? People and households, new households in cities, or new households to be connected to water utilities, they can mean, business for utility. But sometimes you need some public investment, some resources to, leverage this potential. So blending subsidies, incentives, public investments to private investments is critical because considering the purchase power of the population, the income gaps that we have, the business model, they are not natural per se. So we're talking about households, we're talking about people that need some support. We're talking about cities, right, that need some support. So it's very important to have the right combination of public money, private money, and look at the forecast and revenues, how in the future, even the process of expanding their business will act as a multiplier effect, right? Will improve people's income because we're talking also about labor opportunities and local development opportunities that will unfold as services are connected to these settlements. So looking at the revenues, the governance, the transparency, the management, the efficiency, and also the customer, right? It's very important for them to understand who they are serving. And if we're talking about new markets for them, people living in formal settlements, they have to understand, what they expect, what are their aspirations, and what are their capacities in terms of economic capacities and so on. So this needs to be adjusted. They have to know who they are serving, and they have to know how to serve well. So part of the customer services are a critical part of this transformation. And from UN Habitat, I believe we are supporting this whole ecosystem of water operators. We have our Global Water Operators Alliance, GOPA, who has been over the years doing exactly that, supporting the capacity and strengthening these water utilities. One mechanism that has been working very well is the peer-to-peer exchange. So we have water utilities that are better equipped in terms of planning, governance, management, and they offer their know-how, their expertise to water utilities located in other places, or simply exchanges about solutions, about how to deal with things such as water loss and so on. So this peer-to-peer is very valuable, and we have been doing that. We have been working, I think, in the past with more than 700 utilities in more than 100 countries, and I believe having positive impact in the lives of millions of people. But yeah, urbanization is accelerating, especially in Africa, as we said at the beginning. So even our work needs to be, accelerated and more intensive and more effective to make sure that we really create this, this overall infrastructure for water utilities to learn with each other and to be ready for the challenge here in Africa.